Hi friend, it's story time again. Tonight we're slipping you into a scratchy old tunic, handing you a small, splintery wax tablet that feels heavier than your breakfast, and pushing you through the creaking doorway of your very first day at an ancient Greek school. If you're ready to unwind, maybe press like or subscribe, only if it feels gentle and right for you. And I'd love to know where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? Now, let the room grow quiet. Let your breath slow. Let the story begin. The sun has barely bothered to drag itself over the tiled rooftops when your father nudges you out the courtyard gate. You shuffle along the dusty street, your bare feet kicking up the smell of last night's olive pits and stale bread crusts. In your hands you clutch the waxboard. Your only tool, your only shield, your only proof you belong here at all. This board is nothing fancy. A slab of wood, its surface filled with hardened wax, edges rough enough to pinch your palm if you grip too tight. A thin stylus dangles from a cord looped through a hole in the corner. Don't lose it. If you do, you'll be scratching letters with a stick or your own fingernail. And trust me, the teacher won't care how much your hands bleed. You hug the board against your chest like it's armor. Your father doesn't notice. HES already half a step ahead, pretending he won't glance back when you disappear behind the school's crooked gate. Inside, the yard is nothing more than packed dirt under a drooping olive tree. A cluster of other boys shifts and mumbles, kicking at stones. Some are taller than you. One has already pressed his writing board flat to the ground, staring at the scratches he made last night by candlelight. Scratches he hopes are neat enough to impress someone who's impossible to impress. Then you see him. The Didaskalos the teacher. The Soul-minus called second father. HES no gentle uncle. He wears a thin wool cloak that's seen to many seasons, and in his hand is the tool you'll learn to respect before you learn to spell your own name properly. A slender willow switch, stripped smooth, its tip darkened where it's worn out on boys' backsides and shoulders for years. You line up. You press your wax board so close to your ribs that the wood digs into your tunic. Your knees knock together when he paces by. His sandals rasp across the dirt, tracing half-minus circles around you and the other fresh lands. He calls your name. Not the friendly version your mother uses when she's coaxing you to eat figs. Your full name, every syllable crisp as a knife. You open your mouth, but your tongue sticks to the roof. When you finally squeak out present, it's so soft the boy beside you coughs to cover a laugh. The switch flicks near your shin, not a hit, just a promise. The teacher's eyes say what his mouth doesn't. You'd better find your voice tomorrow or hell help you find it with that stick. Some scholars claim this was all perfectly normal, nothing harsh. Just tough love to build good citizens for the city-minus state. Others say Greek boys learned to flinch more than they learned to think, that behind every wax tablet lay a bruise or two hidden under a tunic. The truth probably sits somewhere in the dirt between your bare feet. He moves on to the next name. And the next. Each boy yells present, louder than the last, trying to prove their spines stronger than their fear. You feel your fingers slick with sweat, your board slipping a little. You tighten your grip. You don't dare drop it. If it lands face down, the wax picks up every speck of dust, smudging your scratched letters into nonsense. When the roll call ends, he launches straight into the first chant. No speech, no welcome. Just a monotone drone of names. Titles, gods, old rivers and older kings. Your lips move with the others. Half a second too late, your voice so thin you pray he won't hear it tremble. Near you, an older boy mutters the lines like a song. His board dangles from his elbow by its leather cord, the stylus tucked behind his ear like a soldier's dagger. You wonder how many lashes it took before he could recite without blinking. A dog barks somewhere outside the clay wall. Your stomach grumbles. You think of home, your mother, your father's stall at the market, the warm bread you didn't finish. Right now, you'd trade this whole board for one soft fig. But you keep chanting. You keep your knees locked to your spine straight, the wood pressed tight to your tunic like a flimsy shield against the world. By dusk, your mouth tastes of dry wax and grit. The teacher waves you away like a man flicking dust from his cloak. Your father's long gone, your mother waiting at home to ask if you learned anything useful. You look down at your small wax board scratched and dented, your name carved shaky and half minus faded by your sweaty thumb. But it's yours. Proof you made it through day one. Tomorrow, the willow switch waits. So does that line of older boys, ready to smirk when you slip up again. But tonight, you breathe out the last word under your blanket and remind yourself you stood here today. You didn't run. And in ancient Greece, that counts for something. You wait before the sun even thinks about showing its face, because your mother's rough palm nudges you from dreams that were already half worry, half yesterday's dusty chant. You sit up on your straw mat, rubbing your eyes with a hand that still smells faintly of old wax. Somewhere by the doorway, your father clears his throat like HES about to say something encouraging, but he doesn't. He just nods at your little wax board lying by your sandals, waiting for you like a silent dare. You tie the cord around your wrist so it doesn't slip out of your hands today. Yesterday's lesson taught you one thing. Dropping this board is worse than robbing your bread crust. If you lose that bread, you go hungry for a meal, and your teacher's stick might find your shoulder, your calf, or worse, your pride. The street is quieter this morning. A clay door cracks open in someone's yard. A rooster tries to remind the city who's boss. You keep your head down, the board bumping against your tunic as you walk. Behind your teeth, you mumble yesterday's lines under your breath, hoping they'll stick to your tongue better than they did before. When you step through the low gate, you almost wish for a warm breeze, something soft to ease you in. But the courtyard greets you with the same cold dirt, the same olive tree clinging to life in the corner, the same older boys lounging near the cracked wall like little kings. One of them flicks your wax board as you pass. Careful. He sneers. Don't drop your brain again. Your teacher stands by the doorway, arms folded. Switch tucked under one arm like a scroll he can't wait to unroll across someone's back. Some say HES, your second father. Some say HES, the voice of the city shaping little boys into good men with every sharp word and sharper flick of his willow rod. Today you think he looks more like a farmer sizing up a patch of stubborn weeds. He barks your name again. This time you push your voice out, louder, rounder, hoping it won't crack. It still does. He raises the stick halfway, eyes flick to your lips, then to the older boy who nudged you. Speak clearer tomorrow, he snaps. Then softer, almost to himself. Or don't speak at all. The lesson begins. No gentle warm minus up. No polite reminders. Just a barked line of Homer, tossed into the dirt for you to catch before it vanishes. The boys repeat it like a chant, voices weaving through the courtyard air. One boy stumbles, maybe on purpose, maybe not. The teacher switch finds his calf so fast you swear the air cracked. Again, the teacher commands. You echo the line, tongue pressing clumsy consonants into shape. The older boys grin when you falter. One of them mouths the words at you, mocking your rhythm. You clench your teeth and spit the words back anyway. The teacher's switch hovers behind you but doesn't land. Some historians still squabble about how brutal this training was. Was it discipline or cruelty? Did the boys fear the teacher or respect him? Or maybe fear and respect were the same thing here woven together like the cord looped through your wax board. Midway through the day, your knees ache from sitting cross-legged on cold earth. Your fingers ache from gripping the stylus too tight, carving and scraping the same letters when you slip. The older boys watch you. Some pretend to help, whispering lines just soft enough for you to hear, then swapping a word to trip you up when you repeat it. If you fall for it, The stick will find you, not them. When the sun climbs high, you get a break. If you can call 15 minutes under the crooked olive tree a break, you pull out the bread your mother wrapped in a scrap of cloth, still stale, still half crumb. You nibble at it while your wax board rests on your knees like a reminder that even lunch is temporary. One older boy tosses pebbles at your foot until you look up. "How many lines today?" he taunts. You don't answer. You chew, pretend you're deaf. If you ask the philosophers, they'll tell you Greek boys were shaped for glory, Huey. Polished into future orators, poets, leaders who could charm a crowd with a single clever phrase. But you know better. Right now, your future feels more like a bruise waiting behind your knee. When the teacher calls you back, your throat tightens. He points at you first this time. You stand, wax board in one hand, stylus in the other. Your mouth opens. The first word slides out almost smooth. The second catches. The third gone. You scramble to pull it from the back of your brain. But the older voice snickers, knock it loose again. The teacher lifts his stick. You brace. The tap on your shoulder is sharp, but not cruel. A warning. Again, he says. And so you do. This time, you spit the words faster. Not perfect, but good enough that he moves on. He doesn't smile. He never does. By dusk, your back throbs from sitting too stiff for too long. Your legs tremble when you stand. The older boys file out first, their laughter echoing off the clay walls, as if they didn't flinch, just like you did when they were new. One pauses by the gate, gives your wax board a shift just to hear the stylus clink against the wood. "Don't lose that tomorrow," he says, or help carve the words right into your head in stick. You trudge home with your board tucked tight against your ribs, stylus cord wrapped around your wrist twice. The chant mumbles behind your teeth as you walk past fig trees, market stalls closing for the night, street dogs chasing scraps in the gutter. When your mother asks if you learned something today, you nod. You hold up the wax board like proof. She touches your hair, not quite a pat, more like a promise tomorrow you'll go again. Because in this city, the stick is patient. The words are many, and your wax board, it's the only thing standing between you and the teacher's second fatherly lesson, one you'll never forget. You'd think that after enough days in an Athenian classroom, your knees raw from cold dirt and your wax board etched with more mistakes than lines you got right, you'd have seen the worst of it. But then you hear whispers about the boys from the other side of Greece. Boys your age, give or take a season. Boys from Sparta. The rumors float through your courtyard like wind minus born seeds. Half brag, half warning. One older boy leans against the olive tree while you scratch your wax board clean for the third time that morning. And he smirks down at you. "At least you're not in Sparta," he says, like that's supposed to make your blistered palm feel better. Because in Sparta, you wouldn't be here chanting Homer under an olive tree. You wouldn't have a wax board at all. You'd have a thin cloak, coal-used feet, and a daily lesson plan that starts with survive. No one remembers exactly when Sparta decided children were better trained like pack hounds than pampered city chicks. Some historians say it was the wars. Others say it was fear that a soft boy might grow into a soft soldier, and a soft soldier might lose the city's only thing worth bragging about, its iron spine. So tonight, as you lie on your straw mat with your wax board tucked under your arm like a promise you'll do better tomorrow, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you were born under the cold shadows of Mount Taygetus instead. In Sparta, your first test comes before you even know how to cry properly. The elders check your tiny limbs for flaws. If your legs bend right, your lungs rattle loud enough, your spine straight as a spear, you stay. If not, your first lesson is mercy's sharp edge. Scholars still argue about how often this happened, whether it was ritual or myth, or just a scare story the old women whispered to keep boys in line. But every Spartan boy you meet carries the rumor like an invisible badge. We survived day one. Pass that test, and you get to grow a little mostly on goat's milk and stale porridge. Your mother trains you first. But don't think that means warm songs on gentle pats. Spartan mothers aren't Athens' soft matrons. They know how to wrestle, run, shout, and show you how to brace your shoulders when the wind wants to knock you flat. Then comes 7 years old. 7. When your father of HES around walks you to the barracks and hands you over like a farmer dropping off a lamb for shearing. Your name might come with you, but for now you are boy. Just one more face in the Agoge Sparta Est raining ground. Your new hard mine is bedded cradle. There is no wax board. There are no lines to chant at dawn. Instead, you stand barefoot in frostbitten dust, waiting for the older boys to tell you how fast you'll run. How many push-ups your skinny arms can push before they give out. They watch like hawks, pounce when you slip, jeer when you flinch. Your new teacher is less philosopher, more drill master. He hands you one more cloak, thin enough to test your bones when the winter air sneaks in. Shoes? Forget them. Straw if you're lucky. The floor if you're not. You'd think stealing is a sin here, but you'd be wrong. Stealing is part of the lesson. If your stomach growls loud enough, you better be clever enough to slip bread from the kitchen without the kitchen slave seeing. Get away with it. Survival is cleverness. Get caught? Hope your bruises remind you to sneak better next time. Older boys, be airiness, hover like small gods. They choose who they train, who they test, who they break and build back stronger. If you're clever, you stay close to one, learn the tricks, the shortcuts, the hidden cracks in the drill master's gaze. If you're foolish, you end up wrestling twice as long on bruised knees while the rest eat your share. Some philosophers back in Athens write about this place with envy. Look at those perfect warriors, those iron boys grown into bronze men. Some roll their eyes and call it sandals. Scholars still argue, did the Agoge create unbeatable soldiers, or did it crush every free thought under a boot before it could hatch? You don't care about that argument. Not when your shoulders burn from carrying firewood for miles, or when you lie awake at night, cloak pulled tight, eyes flicking to the rafters above where cold drips down between cracked beams. Next to you, another boy's breath rattles like a dying goat, too cold, too tired. But he won't say it out loud. In Sparta, you learn early that silence is your first armor. You learn that hunger is a teacher who never leaves. You learn that your voice, so precious in Athens for chanting poems, you must speak only when it's time to shout for your brother's shield or whisper where to hide the stolen cheese. Sometimes, word drifts into the barracks about Athens' city of marble temples, boys scratching wax boards, chanting philosophy instead of sprinting, until their lungs bleed. The older boys spit into the dirt when they hear it. Soft bellies, soft brains, they grunt, rolling shoulders already carved with the promise of war. When you drift back to your own reality, your knees on cold Athenian earth, stylus balanced between your fingers, you almost want to thank your second father for his stick-and-switch and barbed lines of Homer. Almost. At least you have bread in your satchel, a mother who asks if your legs hurt, a wax board where your mistakes can be scraped off instead of tatted into your shins by some boy twice your size. You might kneel and dust every morning. You might chant old lines until your throat goes dry. But tonight, as you imagine the Agoges drafty barracks and your feet tucked into a warm corner of your father's courtyard, you admit quietly, to yourself alone, that maybe Athens' switch and chant aren't the cruelest lessons a boy your age could learn. At least not yet. Will you wait tomorrow? You think you're ready. After all, you survived the first roll call. You made it through the chant. You even imagined the Spartan barracks and thank the gods your wax board is your biggest burden. But the moment your eyes open and the chill seeps through your thin blanket, you remember there's more to learn. More ways a Greek school will remind you exactly where you stand. Your mother doesn't say a word when she nudges you up. She hands you a crust of bread that's so dry it flakes under your thumb. She watches you loop the leather cord around your wrist, wax board bumping your ribs as you shuffle into your sandals. She doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. You both know you'll come back with sore knees and shoulders that flinch if someone raises a hand to fast. The street is quieter than usual this morning. Maybe the dawn chill kept the chickens quiet. Maybe the neighbors are pretending they can't hear the school's first lesson of the day echoing through the clay walls, a bucket sloshing under a slave's arm. It hits you the moment you step into the courtyard, the same olive tree, the same patch of dusty ground. But this time there's a line of boys barefoot on the cold earth. Tunics pulled tight around bony shoulders. At the front of the line stands a slave with a grin you can't trust. In his hand, a wooden bucket that sweats coal along its sides. You shuffle closer. The boy in front of you jolts forward when the first splash hits him, an icy shock that soaks through his tunic. Turns his knees purple in the dawn air. He clenches his teeth, so hard you hear the grind. Your turn comes before you have time to wish it away. The slave lifts the bucket, tips it fast. Water cascades down your neck, slides under your collar, trickles over your spine like a finger tracing your bones. You gasp. You catch the teacher's eyes over the slave's shoulder. He raises an eyebrow, daring you to yell loud enough for the older boys to laugh. You swallow the cold, shiver rattling your ribs, and move aside. Another boy steps forward, barefoot soles squeaking in the mud you left behind. Scholars love to debate whether this daily dousing was for hygiene or humiliation. One side claims it toughened your mind, for the city estimates that a cold body makes for sharp wits. The other side says it was simple control. Start your day uncomfortable and you'll remember exactly who owns your comfort, not you. You stand in the half-minus mud, half-minus dust. Wax board pressed against your hip to keep it dry. Your tunic clings to your back like a second skin. When a teacher claps his hands, the boys form a circle in the courtyard. Dirt. No time to dry off. The willow switch hangs from his belt today, but he doesn't need it. This morning, your own classmates will swing for it. It's called the discipline circle. You all know the drill. Repeat the line. Get it wrong, feel the sting. The boy behind you holds a reed switch, cut fresh from the riverbank. Its end still green. The teacher calls out the first chant, one line of poetry so old your tongue feels ancient just for touching it. You spit the line back, voice trembling only a little. The boy behind you nods. You're safe this time. The next boy stumbles, a hiss of breath, then snap. The reed leaves a thin welt on his calf. He straightens, repeats the line. The circle rolls on. You catch your reflection in a puddle left by the bucket. Muddy water, your hair plastered to your temple, waxboard balanced awkwardly in your palm. You wonder if you'll flinch when it's your turn to swing. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll swing harder than you need to, just to feel like the cold doesn't reach all the way to your bones. The teacher paces behind the circle. His eyes flick from one boy to the next, checking posture, listening for the slip of a tongue that means a quick crack of the reed. He says it teaches discipline, that every word you master makes you stronger, sharper, more useful to your city. Some days you believe him. Some days you feel the bruise blooming on your shin and think, maybe the city just likes its boys too tired to argue back. By midday the sun has baked the mud to dry flakes on your ankles. The teacher dismisses you for your break. Bread and figs if you brought them, or a handful of olives if you can trade with a softer, minus-hearted older boy. You sit under the olive tree, pressing your palm to the fresh welt just above your knee. The boy next to you rips a fig in half, gives you the smaller piece. No words. You nod once. Mouth full of sticky seeds. In the quiet you hear the older boys brag who swung hardest, who flinched, who might try to duck out of the line tomorrow. One boy whispers that last month, he snuck past the circle by feigning a fever. The teacher knew. The stick found him twice as quick the next day. He laughs like it was worth it. Maybe it was. Breaks over fast. The chant begins again. This time the reed stays in the teacher's belt. Your knees already remember enough to keep you honest. The words crawl from your mouth. Rough and unsteady, but they come. They always come. When the last line echoes off the courtyard walls, you bow your head, legs trembling but straight. The teacher waves you away. No speech. No praise, just the promise you'll stand here again tomorrow. And the next day. And the day after that. Until your voice knows how to slip through the cold without stuttering. You step back into the street. The sun dips behind the roofs. Your sandals slap against dry stone. Tunic still damp where the cold water soaked deep. The waxboard dried your hip like a stubborn memory, stylus tapping against your thigh with each step. You reach home. Your mother eyes your shins, the smudge of mud on your tunic's hem. She doesn't ask. She presses warm bread into your palm. It's softer than this morning's crust, but you hardly taste it. Your legs buzz with leftover stings. Your mouth mumbles lines you'll chant again tomorrow. And tomorrow you'll stand in the circle again, wet, shivering, waiting for someone else's reed to find your skin. You wonder if you'll swing it back just as hard when your turn comes. You think you will. You'd think that after the cold bucket and the sting of the reed, your day cowled and squeeze out any more lessons. But you're wrong, because all that running, chanting, and calf minus slapping is just the warm minus up for the real terror, memorizing a mountain of words that don't want to stay in your head. Your wax board is warm under your arm when you sit cross-legged in the courtyard again. The dirt is dry now, your calves still striped from the morning's discipline game. The teacher doesn't bother looking tired, his eyes flick over your scruffy hair. Your frayed tunic and your fidgeting fingers. He knows exactly who's going to fail him today. He probably knew before you woke up. He raises one hand. Silence. Even the older boys who snicker when the reed swings stop shifting. The teacher's thumb brushes the handle of the willows, which is a silent reminder that forgetting a word is not just your problem. It's his stick's problem too. You balance your wax board on your knees. You wish you could write the lines down and keep them hidden in the palm of your hand. But the teacher barks, put it away. No scratching. No peeking. Your memory is your only shield now. 1 line of Homer. 2 lines. 5. The teacher's voice is dry as dust but sharp as the edge of your stylus when its lips nicks your thumb. You whisper each word back, feeling them tumble out of your mouth like pebbles down a hill, sometimes smooth, sometimes jagged enough to cut. One boy near the wall rocks back and forth, tapping the side of his wax board against his shine in rhythm. He mouths the lines twice before he says them aloud, lips barely moving. You wonder if he is saying them for the teacher or for himself, or maybe for his father waiting at home, who'll want to hear the lines clean and strong over supper. You stumble on a name, some obscure prince with a string of consonants longer than your wrist. The older boy next to you doesn't miss it. He huffs out a single laugh, so soft it might have been the wind. The teacher's stick flicks toward your ear. You. Again. You swallow, try again. This time the syllables slip out in the right order. Clumsy, but there. Scholars love to imagine Greek boys as natural poets, born with Homer on their tongues and Plato in their heads. But your tongue aches. Your jaw clicks when you open it too wide. You'd trade the entire Iliad for one afternoon with your feet in the creek behind your house, chasing minnows instead of words. At break, you slump under the olive tree with your wax board balanced on your knees. The edge has left a faint bruise where you pressed it too tight against your ribs while you struggled to remember that one impossible line. You scratch your name again, just your name. Nothing fancy. You drag the stylus through the wax so deep you almost gouge the wood. Next to you, an older boy pulls a trick from the fold of his tunic. A scrap of pottery shard, words scratched into it so tiny you squint to read them. He hides it behind his ankle while he murmurs the lines, voice slow enough the teacher can't hear. He catches you staring. You didn't see this, he says. You nod. You didn't see it. You wish you'd thought of it first. When break ends, the teacher claps once. The boys gather in a ragged half-minus circle. You stand, brush dust from your knees. The pottery shard boy tucks his cheek back into his sleeve. You keep your eyes on the teacher's belt, on the switch swaying just so when he moves. He picks a line at random, not one you practiced, but a twist from the middle of the chant, meant to catch your tongue. He points. At you. Of course he does. Your heartbeat drums behind your teeth. You open your mouth. The first word is there. Thank the gods. The next to two. Then a hole, like someone dug out the inside of your skull and left only wind. You feel the older boy's breath at your shoulder, the teacher's eyebrow tilting up. Then you feel something else, a nudge from behind. The tiniest push of a palm at the base of your spine. The pottery shard boy. His lips barely move. He whispers the missing word into your ribs. You catch it, spit it out. The teacher nods, half-minus satisfied. The stick stays by his side. Some historians swear the Greek education system made boys compete so fiercely that no one would ever dare help each other. But here's your truth: sometimes a boy with a shard is kinder than a teacher with a stick. When the sun droops behind the wall, the lesson ends. The teacher sends you off with a flick of his wrist, his mind already turning to tomorrow's chant. Tomorrow's slip minus ups, tomorrow's welts. The older boys drift ahead, their laughter softer now. Tired, but not unkind. The pottery shard boy falls in step next to you. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. You press your wax board to your side. It's scratched and scarred, the edge worn down where your thumb dug too deep. But it holds the ghost of today's lines, and your name, and a single groove that might remind you tomorrow you survived. You remembered enough. You didn't stand alone the whole time. And tomorrow, the words will be heavier. But so will you. When you wake this time, the chant is already in your mouth before you open your eyes. Half-minus formed words roll off your tongue as if they stuck to your teeth overnight. You sit up on your straw mat, scratching a crust of sleep from the corner of your eye, your wax board waiting beside your sandals like a loyal battered dog. Your mother sees you mouth the words as you tie the leather cord around your wrist. She doesn't say you're clever. She doesn't say you're brave. She just nods once, her fingers brushing the dried fig she slips into your hand. A small reward for a boy with 1,000 lines swirling in his head before sunrise. Today you're determined you'll repeat every word right, dodge the stick. Keep your calves free of fresh welts. But deep down you know some boys don't win by being perfect. They win by not getting caught. At the courtyard gate, you find the older boys already gathered in little knots under the olive tree's thin shadow. Some stand straight to be trusted. One leans his shoulder to the wall, the hem of his tunic twitching. You catch a glimpse, just a flicker of clay shard tucked in his waistband. Words scratched so fine you need your nose pressed to the pottery to read them. You press your wax board against your hip and think you could try it. Scratch a line on your own shard. Hide it in your sandal strap. Sneak a glance when the teacher barks a question. If the older boys can do it, why not you? But you've seen what happens when the teacher catches a cheat. Last week, one boy sharp-minus tongued, clever, smug as a cat, tucked an extra slip of wax under his board. When the teacher flipped it over with the tip of his stick, the chant each carved was right there. The older boys laughed later. but only because they weren't the ones kneeling in the dust while the teacher's switch snapped across the boy's palms. 3 lashes for the trick. 3 more for the grin he held and hide. Historians like to think Greek boys learned virtue before they learned vice. But you know better. Vice is part of the lesson. Everyone cheats if they can get away with it. Everyone tries not to get caught because the stick doesn't care how clever you thought you were. Today's lesson is the same chant, a bit longer. The teacher's voice drones over the courtyard, the olive tree rustling just loud enough to drown out the softer syllables if you're not careful. Use it cross-legged, your knees wedged against your wax board to keep your stylus steady. You mouth the line, then scrape it quick while the teacher paces the circle. A nudge to your elbow. The boy beside you tilts his wrist just enough for you to glimpse his trinket. Tiny scrap of wax slipped inside his sleeve. The letters pinched so close you think Kant's wrote them. He mouths the line once, then says it aloud loud. Strong. Perfect. The teacher nods. No stick today, not for him. Your turn. Your mouth is dry. The syllables blur. You choke on a name that yesterday fit fine in your teeth. You glance at the boy's sleeve. His elbow, which is just a hint. The next word passing from his mouth to yours like a secret. You repeat it. Your voice doesn't shake. The stick stays on the teacher's belt. Some say cheating here is a flaw. A crack in the noble marble of Athenian ideals. But look closer and you'll see it for what it is, practice for the real world. Who listens, who lies, who slips truth under their tongue like honey. One day, these boys will stand in the agora, trading words for votes, bribes for power. Better to learn it here, under a switch, than on a battlefield where forgetting a line means losing more than your pride. When the teacher calls break, the courtyard hums with relief. You sit under the olive tree, your wax board in your lap, the stylus tapping a restless beat. The older boys cluster a little too close, voices low. One of them leans in. You want one? He flicks his tunic open just enough to show a fresh pottery shard, blank and waiting. You scratch, I cover you. Tomorrow, you cover me. He grins, teeth sharp as a fox. You don't answer. You break off a piece of your fig. Bite down hard. Sweetness floods your tongue. A soft taste against the harsh dust. Maybe tomorrow you'll nod. Maybe you'll take the shard, scratch your lifeline into clay. But not today. Today you keep the lines in your head where they belong. When the break ends, the circle reforms. The teacher's stick stays quiet, resting against his calf like a sleeping snake. The chant begins again, and you mouth each word slow and careful. Eyes on your waxboard's rough edge. The grooves you dug deep enough to hide your fear. You catch the older boy's eye once his pottery shard tucked back in his waistband, safe for another dawn. Half-minus smile curling behind his teeth. You nod back. A small pack in a dusty yard where trust is as thin as the olive tree's shade. By dusk, your knees ache. Your tongue feels bruised, but your name still lives in the wax, your lines mostly unbroken. And the piece you didn't cheat for sits only in your head, yours alone, for now. Maybe the reed finds your calf again. Maybe you slip. Maybe you lean closer to the boy with the shard. Maybe you don't. But tonight, your hands are clean, and your memory is sharper for having carried every line yourself. No slip, no trick, just grit between your teeth and the promise of another chant waiting with the sunrise. When you drag your feet across the courtyard the next morning, your wax board bouncing against your hip and yesterday's chant still ghosting behind your teeth, you might think you've got Greek's cool, all figured out chant. Scrape, whisper, dodge the stick. Maybe trade a pottery shard if you're feeling brave. It's wrong because the truth is, this yard, this switch, this endless swirl of syllables, it's not here to make you a poet. It's here to make you a soldier who happens to know a few good lines. You squat on your spot in the dirt. Knees folded under you, wax board balanced on your thighs like a small wooden shield. The teacher paces with his stick resting lazy across his shoulder. But HES not looking at you in shoes. HES looking through you, past you, at the city beyond these clay walls. The chant is shorter today, but sharper bits of Herodotus mixed with a snatch of some general speech you'd don't even pretend to understand. The teacher stops every few lines to bark questions: who fought? Who fell? What did they say before they died? The older boys recite the answers like they've known them since birth. You stumble once. Catch the word on your tongue the second time. The stick taps your wrist but doesn't bite. Somewhere, tucked inside the city's warm myth of democracy and reason, is a harder truth: every polished speech is a polished spear. Every well-memorized line is a practice thrust, a soft rehearsal for the day your knees aren't pressed to dirt, but braced behind a shield. Break comes early today. The teacher waves you off with a grunt. You stand, legs tingling, pins and needles down your shins. Near the olive tree, the older boys circle up, no figs or olives this time, just their arms tangled together in mock wrestling holds. Feet sliding in the dust as they grunt and laugh through clenched teeth. One boy spots you watching. Come here, he says. You think you'll live in the agora your whole life. Before you can stammer an excuse, they yank you into the rain, hands on your shoulders, feet kicking dust into your sandals. You don't drop your wax board, you fling it aside at the last second, stylus dangling from its cord. Then its knees digging for purchase, elbows pressing ribs, another boy's shoulder braced against your chest, while you both grunt like farm animals testing fences. Some historians swear the Greeks prized the mind above the muscle. That poetry was the peak, that philosophy shaped the best of men. But no boy here believes that. Not when the teacher watches the rough house with the same cold eye he uses for your recitations. Not when he calls out corrections: hip slower, brace your feet. A speech won't save you if you fall on your back in the mud. You taste dust when the older boy shoves you down, your knees scraping the hard earth where you chanted a line of Homer just an hour ago. You roll away, your ribs throbbing under your tunic. The older boy doesn't gloat. He holds out a hand, pulls you up. He says, "So you do it again." Somewhere behind you, the teacher mutters something about how Athens needs boys who can stand in a phalanx as well as on a marble step. The older boys echo him in their own way, shoving shoulders into chests, knees into thighs, pushing and pulling until you can't tell if you're fighting or learning to trust that someone's elbow won't break your ribs for real. When the sun crawls higher, you drop to your knees under the olive tree again, breath scraping your throat like dry straw. You find your wax board half-minus buried in the dirt. You brush it clean with your sleeve, some lines still scratched deep from earlier. Your name dug in just enough to remind you you're more than bruised knees and a mouthful of half-minus memorized verses. The teacher calls you back for one last round of questions. How many ships sailed? Who commanded them? What their men shouted when they hit the shore? You answer between ragged breaths, dust sticking to your lips. This time the stick stays at his side. Scholars like to say Greek boys were taught to speak first, think second, fight third. But your shoulder remembers the shove, your wax board the lines, your knees the bruises blooming in the same dirt where you whispered poetry an hour ago. When a teacher waves you off at dusk, you limp home. Your mother squints at the smudge on your tunic's shoulder where someone's elbow caught you just right. She breaks your bread in half, drops a handful of olives in your palm. You chew, taste salt and oil on your tongue. You close your eyes and see not just words, but boys behind shields, chanting in line, their feet braced like yours in the wrestling circle. You press your wax board to your side, your fingers tracing the lines you'll scrape again tomorrow. And you know this isn't just school. This is training. For your tongue, yes. For your fists, your feet, your spine. Because Athens needs poets who stand firm, philosophers who know when to brace their knees in the dirt and shove back. And tomorrow, when you drop your wax board to wrestle, you'll dig your heels deeper. Maybe this time, you won't fall so fast. The next dawn crawls in soft and slow, but your brained oats and carrots already pacing circles behind your eyes, replaying every chant, every scraped line, every bruise. You mumble half a verse before you even sit up on your mat. Your mother leaves a stale hunk of bread by your feet, wrapped in a scrap of cloth that still smells faintly of last night's herbs. She doesn't ask if you're ready. She knows you're not. No boy ever is. By the time you reach the courtyard, your knees remember yesterday's wrestling. The older boys lean against the cracked wall near the olive tree, same as always. But there's an extra hush today, no playful elbows, no sharp grins. They're waiting for what's about to come next. The thing that makes the stick look gentle by comparison. Your teacher stands near the door, arms crossed, willow switch tucked into his belt, like an afterthought. Today he doesn't bother barking a line of Homer. Instead, he motions to the center of the yard. A circle forms almost by instinct. Boys shifting in the dirt, wax boards tucked under arms or left balanced on their knees like fragile shields. Your stylus C-links softly where its wings from its leather cord. Today, the teacher says, you will think. And every boy in that courtyard knows exactly what that means. Philosophy. Debate. A test that doesn't bruise your shines but can bend your mind until your tongue ties itself in knots. Some say philosophy is for older men in crisp white robes. But here, in this dusty yard, you get a taste early. The teacher tosses a question into the circle like a stone into a pond. What makes a man good? He doesn't care who answers first, he cares who hesitates. The older boys trade quick looks. One clears his throat, spits out a half-minus remembered phrase about virtue and courage. The teacher snaps back into says courage is always good. Another boy tries to patch the answer. Justice. Loyalty, strength. The teacher twists each word around, poking holes in their neat answers until they stand there, shifting from foot to foot, eyes darting to see if you'll trip too. Then he points at you. His finger is worse than the stick, thin, bony, impossible to dodge. What makes a man good? Your mouth opens, closes. You think about your wax board, your scraped knees, the bruises hidden under your tunic. You want to say obedience. You want to say courage. You want to say whatever keeps your stick away from my shoulders. But your tongue stalls. And that's all he needs. He barks another question. Is courage still good when it leads to ruin? Is loyalty wise if it blinds you to truth? You shift your feet in the dirt. Your mind crawls for the lines you know so well. Homer, Herodotus, the lists of names and deeds. But this isn't a list. This is a maze, and every turn makes you dizzy. Historians still puzzle over how much philosophy Athenian boys really learned. Some swear it was the bedrock of the city's greatness. Boys growing into men who could argue circles around any tyrant. Others say it was just another stick, another test to break soft edges off a boy before he got ideas too big for his sandals. You feel the circle's heat on your cheeks. The older boy's eyes on the side of your neck. You catch your breath and try again. Wisdom, you croak. A good man is wise. The teacher nods just once. Then he cuts. And what is wisdom? You blink. The older boys smirk behind their palms. One whispers something you can't hear, probably betting how long you'll stammer before the switch comes out. But it doesn't, not yet, because this is the trick of it all. The stick is for lazy legs and sloppy tongues. Philosophy is the stick you swing at yourself. Your mind twists around your own words. Wisdom is knowing when to speak, when to fight, when to kneel. Maybe it's knowing when to shut your mouth and let smarter men talk. You say none of that because your mouth's too dry, your tongue stuck to your teeth. The teacher lets you off the hook with a flick of his hand. The next boy jumps into fast, too eager to show HES braver than you today. He shouts something about truth, and the teacher snaps it apart word by word until it lies flat in the dust, same as your pride. When the circle breaks for rest, you slump under the olive tree. The wax board pressed to your chest like a pillow that won't comfort you. The older boys sprawl nearby, picking at fig seeds stuck in their teeth. One kicks your sandal gently. Next time, just say something clever about virtue and shut up, he mutters. He likes that. You half-minus smile. HES right. But tomorrow you know he'll stutter too, and you'll be the one smirking when the question pins him to the wall. Some say debate is the soul of Athens' open-mouthed sun, open mind shaping marble city walls. But for you, debate is just another test. Another bruise, softer than the stick but deeper under the skin. Another lesson that thinking hurts more than a welt on your calf because the welt fades. But a question lives forever. When dust tucks itself between the rooftops, the teacher dismisses you with a grunt. No stick today. No chant to hum under your breath. Just a scrap of confusion lodged between your ribs, something that'll keep you up tonight. Turning in your straw mat. Whispering the question into the darkness like a secret only the olive tree knows. And tomorrow he'll ask again. And you'll open your mouth, hoping your tongue is braver than your knees. The day begins with the sting of leftover thoughts still rattling around your head. You whisper bits of yesterday's impossible questions while you rub your eyes with the back of your wrist. Your mother places half a fig and a crust of bread into your palm, but the taste of yesterday's debate lingers longer than any crumb could. When you slip through the courtyard gate, you brace for the stick, the chant, the cold bucket, anything to get your mind back to something simple, something you can dodge or memorize. But today, the courtyard hums with a different kind of tension. Something rougher than poetry, louder than a line of Homer. The older boys gather near the cracked wall under the olive tree's thin shade, but they're not waiting for the teacher's stick, fair watching each other. You hug your wax board tighter to your ribs, the stylus bumping your tunic as you slip into your usual spot in the dirt. But you can feel it. Today's lesson won't be on your wax board. It'll be under your skin. One boy stands out. HES older, taller, his shoulders sharp as roof tiles under his thin cloak. His name drifts through the courtyard like a rumor the teacher's favorite. Not because he chants best, though he does. Not because he wrestles hardest, though he does that too. But because his eyes flick everywhere, catching every whisper that was meant to be heard. When the teacher appears in the doorway, switch resting lazy in his palm, the favored boy straightens his spine. He doesn't chant first. He doesn't wrestle first. But when the teacher looks away, just for a breath, he tilts his chin toward another boy, a younger one whose tunic still sags at the shoulder seams. You see the silent nod. You see the circle tighten. The favorite leans close to the teacher, mouth hidden by a half-minus raised hand. A word slips out. Just one. The teacher's eyebrow lifts. He glances at the younger boy, then at the circle as it shifts to make space. Some say Greek boys spent all their energy memorizing poetry and logic puzzles. But the truth, whispered in these dusty yards, is that your real test is each other. Who will cover for you when your tongue stumbles? Who will find your secrets and trade them for a pat on the head and one less welt tomorrow? The teacher barks a line. Yesterday's chant, but twisted backward. Everyone turns. The younger boy freezes. His mouth opens, closes. The favorite smirks behind him, arms folded. Eyes cold. The teacher's stick flicks once. The welt blooms fast on the boy's shin. Another line. Another stumble. Another welt. You press your wax board so hard into your knee that the edge digs a groove into your skin. When the boy's voice finally cracks into a broken whisper, the teacher moves on, satisfied that HES learned his lesson for the day. The favorite barely hides his grin. Break comes, but it doesn't feel like a break. The older boys split into their clusters, tiny kingdoms under the olive tree's spindly branches. A whisper here, a shiv there. A tray of figs or a slip of wax scrapes smooth on someone's palm. You chew your stale bread under the tree's cracked trunk, watching a boy carve a new name onto his board, cheerfully covering the old scratches with fresh wax. Another boy leans over his shoulder, eyes sharp as a cat's paw, noting every letter, just in case he needs it later. Scholars write about democracy as Athens' proud gift to the world, voices rising in debate, minds sharpened by reason. But in this yard, democracy is rougher. Its elbows and ribs, secrets traded for scraps of kindness. A half-minus buried rumor that you might trip tomorrow if you stand too proud today. When break ends, the teacher calls the circle back together. This time it's not a chant but a question. How well did you listen while your classmates stumbled? He picks you. What word did he miss? He nods at the boy with the fresh welt still pink on his calf. Your tongue sticks to your teeth. You could lie. Say you didn't hear. You could shrug and feel the stick flick your shoulder. Or you could speak the truth and watch another boy's eyes turn flint at the back of the circle. You mumble the missing word. The teacher nods once. The welted boy flinches, but not at you, at the favorite behind him, already whispering to another shoulder, already planning who's next. When dusk comes, you slip your wax board under your tunic as you walk home. The scratches dig against your ribs with every step, a reminder that the stick is only one kind of lesson. The real one walks beside you every day, quiet feet, quick eyes. Boys who might catch you if you fall, or push you first to see if you'll squeal when you hit the dirt. Your mother doesn't ask about the small smear of wax on your elbow where you pressed too hard. She breaks your fig in half, gives you the bigger piece, a soft thing in a day of sharp corners. When you lie down that night, you tuck your board beside your mat. Your hand finds the groove the edge left in your skin, a mark softer than the stick, but deeper than any chant. And tomorrow, the stick might miss you, but someone else's eyes won't. By now, you know the courtyard secrets where the shade hits at noon, which olive tree branch will hold if you lean against it too hard, who LL jab your ribs when the teacher turns his back. You know the teacher's stick by the sound it makes cutting air. You know your wax board's rough edge by the groove it's carved into your palm. But there's a gate you've never stepped through, one that swings open only for boys whose fathers count coins by the hundreds or whose mothers wear fine linen you've never seen up close. The boys who slip away before the reed circle starts, whose sandals are stitched twice at the seams, whose cloaks never drag mud across the courtyard floor. You catch glimpses of them. Sometimes they drift past the olive tree in small knots, heads bowed in conspiratorial hush. When the teacher's voice booms, they don't always flinch. They know something you don't, because when they slip out the gate, they walk not home but to another room. A hidden room, a teacher who doesn't shout in front of everyone. A private voice just for them. This is the world of the private tutor. The payday go-goes. Some historians say the word just means guy day servant to walk a boy from house to house, carry his scrolls. But you know better. The payday go-goes is a shadow that follows rich boys everywhere. Sometimes HES, an old slave with a back bent by years. Sometimes HES, a freedman who speaks softly but swats quicker than your courtyard stick when no one's watching. His job, make sure the boy's posture stays stiff at the symposium, that he recites lines clean at his father's feast, that he never's father's feast. Ever talks back to the guest who just complimented the family's expensive crayer. You hear stories and whispers how these rich boys don't kneel in the dirt, but on polished tiles behind a shaded porch. How the tutor's reed switches thin as a thread but cuts deep if a line's mispronounced. How mistakes cost more here than in the open yard because a father who pays extra expects extra shame if his son's tongue betrays him. Today you get to see it for yourself. The teacher claps once, dismisses half the courtyard boys to practice wrestling forms in the dust. But you get pointed to the gate. A favor, he says. The family down the street wants an extra mouth to chant alongside their son. A warm body to stand next to the boy in the shaded porch, so he doesn't feel alone when the tutor stick taps too hard. You clutch your wax board like a lucky charm as you slip through the gate you've never crossed before. The street twists past tidy houses, their clay walls painted clean white, not crumbling with sun minus bleached cracks like yours. You knock when you're told. A servant with sandals cleaner than your mother's best tunic opens the door. Inside, the air is soft, cooler than the courtyard, perfumed with drifting smoke from an oil lamp that's worth more than your father's stall. The private tutor sits cross-legged on a low wooden bench. He doesn't bark. He smiles, but it's the kind of smile that never touches his eyes. Beside him, the rich boy your age, maybe younger, tunic press, smooth. Wax board resting on silk cloth instead of your scratched knee. He looks at you like you're the one who brought the dust in with your feet. The lesson begins. The same lines you chant every morning in the courtyard. But here every syllable is dissected, unspooled like a frayed thread. The tutor stops on the shape of a consonant, the lilt of a vowel. He says your name once mispronounced, it then calls you boy instead. You repeat the line. The rich boy stumbles. The tutor's thin reed switch taps the silk cushion by his knee. The boy flinches. His eyes dart sideways, finding yours for a heartbeat. There's something raw there, something you recognize from your own knees on cold dirt when the line sticks. The tutor nods once cold praise, polished as the marble tile under your sandals. He tells you to wait. The boy recites alone this time, lips trembling when the word won't come. The reed taps his calf. The reed taps again. His chin wobbles, but the tutor never raises his voice. His whisper is sharper than any shout you've heard echo through your courtyard wall. Some scholars say private tutors soften the cruelty of open schools. Personal guidance, gentle correction, the luxury of learning at a slower pace. But your eyes see the well-blooming pink on the boy's calf where the reed snapped true. The olive tree in your courtyard never looked so kind. When the session ends, you shuffle back to your courtyard, wax board hugged to your chest like it's yours again. The olive tree's cracked trunk waits for your shoulder. Its dry leaves rustling above boys who elbow ribs and trip feet, but never whisper your name like an insult. Tomorrow you'll kneel and dust again. You'll trade shoulder shoves for reed snaps. You'll watch the rich boys slip away behind tidy gates. And maybe you'll think just for a flicker that your dirt-floored olive tree aren't the worst lesson you could get. Because here, in the open yard, you can grin when you trip. You can spit out a line wrong and taste the word again tomorrow. And your mistakes, they're yours alone, dug into your wax, scraped away by your own hand, not hidden under silk for someone else to notice. Tomorrow, the teacher's stick will still swing. But it won't wear a soft smile that never reaches its eyes. When you settle into the courtyard dirt the next morning, your wax board feels heavier than usual against your thigh. Maybe it's the memory of the polished floor under that rich boy's feet, or maybe it's the whisper of the tutor's reed snapping air softer than your teacher's willow but twice as sharp. Either way, you grip your board tighter than ever because here, at least, it's yours. Some say the wax board is just a two-lay slab of wood with a thin bed of wax board, smooth, easy to scratch, easy to erase. But you know it's more than that. It's your entire mind, pressed flat and brittle. It's the thing you carve your name into so you don't forget who you are when your tongue stumbles and your memory flickers. You kneel cross-legged, balancing the board on your knees while the teacher paces the circle. He doesn't bother with the stick yet. He doesn't need to, because the chat today is new longer, twisted with strange names you've never heard and phrases that stick to your teeth like old cheese rind. You drag the stylus across the wax, slow at first, then faster as the words land. Pause, repeat. The stylus' point is blunt, worn smooth from days scraping the same lines over and over. When it's lit, it leaves a smear you'll have to warm with your thumb to smooth again later. Next to you, an older boy flips his board over. The wax on the back is thinner, peppered with scars where he dug too deep last week trying to scrape away a mistake. He catches you looking, grins, and mouths. Don't scratch too deep once you hit the wood. You're stuck with it forever. You try not to think about it, but the more you press, the deeper the groove. A name here, a phrase there. If your hand slips, the mark stays, a ghost under the next layer of warmed wax. You breathe onto the surface to soften it, rub it smooth with the flat of your palm. Feel the tiny grains of grit embedded in the edge of the board dig into your skin. Some historians like to romanticize this simple tool. Look at these clever Greeks, so resourceful, so frugal, scraping, unsmoothing, never wasting a scrap of papers. But you know the truth, waste isn't the problem. The problem is what happens when there's nowhere left to hide a mistake. When break comes, you slump under the olive tree, the wax board balanced flat on your thighs. You flick the stylus end to end, watching the scratches catch the sunlight. An older boy squats next to you. He flips his board over and shows you his secret tiny cuts along the rim. Not from mistakes, but from slipping his stylus under the wax to lift the whole layer off when it's too scared to fix. Don't tell the teacher, he says. If he sees you wasting wax, he'll make you scrape the whole thing with a broken shell. You nod, but part of you wonders if it would be so bad. New wax, new words, a clean slate instead of this patchwork of half-minus erased grooves and ghosts of yesterday's stumbles. You close your eyes and imagine it. A fresh layer, warm and smooth under your palm, your name scratched neat and proud across the top, every word fitting just right the first time. But then you open your eyes, feel the weight of the stylus digging between your fingers, and remember there's no fresh start here. Only the work of scraping, smoothing, doing it over and over until you don't slip anymore. When the teacher calls you back, your legs are half-minus asleep from sitting too long, but your mind snaps awake when the first line cuts the quiet tear. You scratch the word into the board, check it, breathe warm across it, smooth the edges with your thumb. Another boy stumbles. The stick snaps the courtyard air behind you. You flinch, but your line stays true this time. The teacher's eyes pass you by. Relief pools in your belly for half a heartbeat before the next word tumbles from his mouth like a stone you have to catch before it cracks the whole chantipa. By dusk, your board is a battlefield line scored. Smudges half-minus rubbed smooth, tiny curls of dark wax stuck under your nails. Your stylus tip is dull again, but you keep scratching, digging, smoothing, erasing. You walk home with the board tucked under your arm like a secret you can't afford to lose. At your door, your mother's hands brush the crumbs of wax off your tunic while she checks your knees for new bruises. She doesn't ask what you learned, she only checks that you came home with the same board you left with. When you lie down on your straw mat, you trace the edge of the wood with your thumb until your eyelids drift heavy. You wonder if tomorrow's lines will fit any cleaner, if your palm will slip less, if one day you'll smooth the wax flat in a single breath and carve an aim into it that never needs to be scraped away. But for now, you drift to sleep with the stylus cord looped around your wrist and the board's battered weight against your ribs, proof that your mistakes belong to you. Scratches and all. Morning slips through the cracks in the clay wall before your eyes even open. You feel the weight of your wax board beside your elbow before you feel the straw mat under your back. Your mother doesn't wake you today, she knows you're already halfway out the door in your mind, chanting yesterday's lines under your breath before the roosters even had the courage to crow. Your sandals scrape the dirt road as you walked. The cord tied to your wrist tugs slightly with every step, your stylus bumping against your hip like a heartbeat you can't quiet. You press your thumb over the edge of the board, feeling for the groove you scratched too deep yesterday. Still there. Of course it is. In the courtyard, the teacher's voice is a low growl, under the murmur of boys settling onto cold dirt. The olive tree leans just a little more than yesterday, its shadow barely wide enough to cover 3 crouched shoulders. You take your usual place just outside the shade and balance your wax board on your knees. The stylus hovers above the surface, tip dull, point smudged with the ghost of yesterday's stumbles. Today, he says, you'll learn how to sing. Not with a lyre, not with a flute, just your throat, your tongue, your teeth clacking syllables into the dusty morning air. Today's lines are poetry, the good kind sweet in the mouth when you get it right, salt in the cut of your gums when you miss a step. He doesn't shout the first line. He sings it. A slow roll of vowels, a flick of consonants, a rhythm nor expected to swallow whole and spit back perfect. You clear your throat, taste old crumbs of bread and dust on your tongue, and repeat the first phrase. It comes out dry, cracked. He stops. He sings it again, louder. You flinch at the edge of the melody, then catch it by the tail the 3rd time. Beside you, an older boy hums under his breath steady. Sure, lips curling into the shape of the words before they fly free. His wax board lies forgotten in the dust, but you keep yours tight against your knees, stylus dancing tiny corrections between the lines whenever your tongue betrays you. Historians love to paint this part bright and noble. The Greek boy in the courtyard reciting verse under olive leaves, his voice pure as spring water. They don't mention the crack in your throat when your mouth goes dry halfway through the 3rd line. They don't mention the reeds which the teacher rolls between the fingers as your voice stumbles, waiting for your tongue to trip twice in the same spot. Some say boys who could sing the old poems returned an olive wreath at festivals, a warm seat at the city as feasts, the year of the elders who watch the agora with eyes half mine as closed but minds sharp as knives. Maybe that's true, maybe the boy humming beside you will be one of them. You're not so sure about yourself. Break comes early. The teacher waves his stick at the sun, says the next chant will wait for the shadows to shift. You drop your board in your lap and rub your throat with the heel of your hand. Under the olive tree's cracked trunk, a knot of older boys test their lines on each other. One spits a phrase so quick you barely catch the meaning, another answers back sharper, twisting the line into something new. They laugh like the world outside this courtyard doesn't exist. You stare at your board. The lines scratched into the wax are half minus finished phrases, single words that broke your voice in half before you caught the rhythm. You breathe across the surface, warm it, smooth it with your thumb. But the grooves remain whispers that you missed the note, stumbled on the rhyme. A boy beside you rips a fig in two, hands you the smaller half without a word. His mouth works quietly on a line, tongue flicking between his teeth as he checks the beat with the tap of his stylus against his knee. You chew the fig slowly, seeds crunching as you swallow sweetness that feels almost too soft for this place. When break ends, the teacher calls you back. He points at you first this time. You stand, knees stiff, wax board pressed flat to your hip. The line lands on your tongue like an unwelcome guest. 3 quick beats, 1 long. You catch the first 2, choke the 3rd. Drag the last one out like a limp donkey. A snort of laughter behind you. The stick twitches at the teacher's side, but he doesn't raise it. He just nods once. Again. So you breathe in, close your eyes. Feel the line slide back across your teeth like a soft thread drawn through a stubborn needle's eye. This time you hit the beat. Almost. Enough to move on. Some scholars claim boys who stumbled he ended up tending goats instead of speaking in the agora. Maybe. But the goat path doesn't feel so far off when you hear the older boys' smoother verses like oil poured on warm bread, while your words stick rough to your tongue, no matter how many times you rub them smooth across your waxboard. When the last line settles into the dust, the teacher dismisses you with a flick of his wrist. Your legs carry you home slower today, your throat raw. Your stylus edge dull as a worn minus-out nail. Your mother waits with a scrap of cheese, a fig she saved just for you. She sees the scratch on your neck where your tunic rubbed draw, while you turned your head to catch every word. She doesn't ask what you sang. She doesn't need to. She knows tomorrow you'll sing it again, softer, smoother, louder when the line demands it. And your wax board will hold the ghosts of today's verses like a quiet promise that tomorrow maybe the words will taste sweet all the way to the end. You don't even hear the rooster this time, your head's already full of lines before your eyes crack open to the great dawn. You sit up on your straw mat, run a finger over your wax board's battered edge, and whisper yesterday's hardest line just to make sure it didn't slip away overnight. Your mother gives you half a cup of watered wine this morning, just enough to rinse the dryness from your throat. She watches as you tie the stylus cord tight around your wrist. She doesn't ask if you're tired. You both know the answer. When you slip through the courtyard gate, you feel it in the air. Something shifting just beyond the olive tree's thin shade. The older boys huddled closer today, shoulders pressed tight, voices clipped low enough that you can only catch fragments. He told him, "H.E.S. watching you. Don't say my name." You kneel on your spot in the dust. Wax board balanced on your knees like a secret you wish you could bury in the tree roots. You don't dare look over your shoulder, but you can feel them pairs of eyes flicking your way, flicking back, like wolves testing which goat limps the hardest. This is the lesson no teacher ever writes on the wax board. Every chant, every line, every wrestling match in the dirt is only half the story. The other half lives in whispers, tiny alliances, small betrayals traded like figs under the olive tree. The teacher doesn't bother with philosophy today, no grand questions about virtue or courage. He knows the circle is restless. He just sparks a line, points at the first boy, and waits. The boy's voice cracks halfway through the word. Not much, just enough. The older boy behind him leans in, eyes half-slitted. He mouths something under his breath, soft enough only the boy can hear. The boy nods once, says the word right this time. You'd think that's the end, but when the teacher turns, the older boy lifts his chin just a notch, catches the teacher's eye. One flick of his finger, a tiny tilt of his head toward the boy in front of him like a dog pointing at a hidden rabbit. The stick lands fast. A single snap across the first boy's showing. Not hard enough to bleed, just enough to remind him who owns the truth in this yard. Some say ancient Greek boy's word, reeled in loyalty from the start. Loyalty to family, to city, to the gods above. But loyalty to each other? That's different. Loyalty here is a rope frayed thin, tugged this way and that by who's watching, who's whispering, who's waiting for you to stumble. When break comes, you slump under the olive tree with your back pressed to its cracked trunk. The fig you brought from home feels dry in your mouth. Across the yard, the older boys cluster in the nut shoulders blocking the sun. Voice is too soft to carry. You see one boy slip a piece of wax from his board, fold it into his palm, press it into another boy's hand like a bribe. You pretend you don't see. You scrape your stylus along the edge of your own board, smoothing yesterday's lines into shallow ghosts. You feel someone's shadow fall over your knees. A foot nudges your sandal. You look up. It's the favorite boy again, the teacher's extra eyes. The courtyard's quiet blade. He leans down, voice so soft it's almost kind. "Tell me who slipped today," he says. You'll tell him you did well. He might even skip you when the stick weans tomorrow. Your tongue sticks to your teeth. You could. It wouldn't even be a lie you saw it after all, but you shake your head. His half-minus smile twists, sharp as a splinter. He shrugs, pats your shoulder once. Too soft to mean anything good, and walks off. Bike ends fast. The teacher calls the circle back. The favorite boy answers every line crisp and clear, shoulders squared like a hoplite on a polished shield. When the chant falters behind you, the stick doesn't wait long. The boy who took the wax piece flinches when the reed snaps his calf. The favorite doesn't even look back. By dusk, your wax board feels heavier than ever. You brush the olive tree's roots with your toes as you stand, dust clinging to your knees where you press them deep to keep from shifting too much, too fast. The stylus knocks against your hip as you walk home. The cord tied around your wrist like a promise you didn't dare trade today. Your mother waits by the door, lamp flickering just enough to catch the shadow under your eyes. She touches the edge of your wax board, turns it over to see the lines you didn't scratch today. She doesn't ask who whispered what. She knows the truth is sometimes softer than wax and twice as easy to smear. When you lie down on your straw mat, you run your thumb over the grooves at the edge, tiny scars that won't smooth away no matter how warm your breath is. You whisper tomorrow's line into the dark, quiet enough that no ear but yours can hear. Because here, loyalty doesn't live in the open air. It hides under your tongue, scratches itself into the wax, and waits for you to decide when to keep it and when to scrape it away. By now, you're half wax and half dust. You kneel before sunrise without thinking, your knees shaping grooves and the courtyard dirt as faithfully as your stylus carves lines into the battered board balanced on your thighs. Every chant feels like it's always lived inside your ribs. Every snap of the stick feels almost familiar, almost expected. But there's one thing the teacher's stick can't promise you: freedom. For that, you need something bigger than a memorized line or a well-timed answer. You need it or out. Aid, or they call graduation, though no one really says it like that. They just say you're ready. Ready for what? That depends on who's waiting for you on the other side. The day starts like always, fig crumb in your teeth, olive pit rolling under your sandal as you shuffle into the yard. The older boys are restless today. Not the sharp, cold restless of whispers and secrets. This is a different human sense that something's ending, or about to break loose. The teacher waits by the olive tree's cracked trunk, arms crossed, switch dangling at his side like a tail he forgot to tuck away. He calls the circle in closer than usual. His eyes flick over the older boys, the ones whose shoulders push against the edge of boyhood, whose knees are too knotted with scars to blend in with the first-year squeaks anymore. He doesn't bark a chant. He doesn't ask a question. He points to one of them, tall, lean. A name you've heard whispered like a charm, the boy who never flinched, never forgot a line, never traded a pottery shard for an easier answer. He steps forward. His wax board hangs from his wrist like an afterthought. Recite, the teacher says. No hint of kindness, no threat in the reed's lazy sway. Just that word heavy enough to make the whole courtyard hush. The boy closes his eyes. He doesn't touch his board. He doesn't roll the stylus between his fingers. He just breathes, and the words pour out like they were born on his tongue. Homer, Hesiod, scraps of law and scraps of rumor about heroes who didn't bow when the world said bend. Somewhere, someone's foot cuffs the dirt. The teacher's head snaps, eyes slicing the courtyard back to stillness. The boy keeps going, his voice doesn't stumble. The lines knot together into a chant so smooth you almost forget how sharp the teacher's stick can be. When he finishes, the teacher doesn't clap. He doesn't nod. He just says, "Good." And good in this place is worth more than an olive wreath or a gold coin. It means go. It means you don't have to kneel here anymore. Some historians say Athenian boys graduated by slipping out of the courtyard quietly. No trumpets, no ceremony, just a nod from a teacher and a push toward the agora or the barracks or the dusty trail of politics, if your father's name carried enough weight to swing a door open. But the truth is, it's messier than that, because the moment that boy steps back into the circle, The older boy's eyes shift. One of them shoves his shoulder, rough enough to test if the boy's new freedom holds steady. He does. Another claps his back, harder than needed. Half praise, half reminder that the yard may let you go. But your old friends don't forget how you once stumbled your lines. The teacher calls the next name. Another boy steps forward. This one hesitates. His board hangs limp at his side, fingers drumming the edge like it might whisper the answers if he holds it tight enough. He opens his mouth, lets a line loose. It tangles halfway through. He stutters. The teacher's stick taps the dirt, not his shin again. He tries. He trips. The older boys exchange a look that tastes like stale figs left too long in the sun. In the end, the stick lands on the boy's shoulder. Not hard, just enough to press the truth into his bones. Not yet. Break comes, but no one really eats. They stand under the olive tree in small knots, boys too young to graduate staring wide-eyed aside at the one who did. Boys who tried and failed, mumbling half-minus finish lines into their cupped palms. The teacher sits by the trunk, eyes half-minus closed, switch resting across his knees like a sleeping snake. You press your thumb into your wax board's corner. Feel the dent your nail leaves. You whisper today's line under your breath. Test its weight on your tongue. Someday, the teacher's finger will point at you. Someday, you'll breathe the lines without tasting the stick on your tongue. Some say finishing school in Athens meant a boy was free, ready to speak in the agora, ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with men who spent half a lifetime scratching lines into wax until their tongues learned not to betray them. But you know freedom isn't so simple. The one who got his good doesn't get to toss his board into the hearth and laugh away the chant. No, he just trades one circle for another. The courtyard for the council. The teacher's stick for a magistrate's bart, or a general's orders, or a whisper in the dark from a friend who never forgot how easy it is to slip a line into your ear and call it loyalty. When the sun dips behind the courtyard wall, the teacher flicks his wrist once. The older boys scatter. The boy with the good steps through the gate without looking back. You stay kneeling for a moment longer than you have to. You run your finger along the newest line on your wax board. One more line. One more day. You stand. You press the board flat to your ribs as you slip out the gate, knees aching, mind echoing the word you crave more than figs or rest or praise. Good. One day, it'll be yours. By now, every groove in your wax board feels like an old scar. Each one a slip of the tongue, a stumble in a chant, a whisper traded for silence. You've scraped so many lines away that the wood peeks through in places, tiny reminders that nothing you really disappears, it just buries itself deeper under the next layer of warm breath and soft hum. Today is no different. You drag your feet into the courtyard at dawn, knees stiff from nights spent rehearsing the lines under your blanket, stylus cord cutting a shallow red band into your wrist where you tied it to tight while you slept. Some part of you half-minus hoped the gate would stay shut today. But the olive tree waits, the cracked trunk leaning like an old friend who never learned how to offer comfort properly. The teacher stands by the doorway, his switch tapping his palm so soft it almost sounds like a heartbeat. Around him, the older boys fidget, shoulders squared. Tunics brushed clean for a day that might be the day their wax boards finally stay blank because they're ready. No more lines to scrape. No more stick waiting in the corner of their eyes. You kneel where you always kneel, the dirt cool against your shines. The teacher doesn't call the circle in close. He doesn't bark a line. He just watches, waiting to see who's brave enough to open their mouth first. It's not you. Not yet. A boy older than you clears his throat, voice cracking halfway through the first syllable dry. Sharp, the sound of hope colliding with fear. The chant spills out of him, jagged at the edges but mostly whole. He doesn't touch his wax board. He doesn't need to. H.E.S. carried these lines so long they feel like bones under his tongue. When he finishes, the teacher lifts the stick, rests it on his shoulder, and says nothing. That silence is its own kind of good. One by one, the others step forward. Each voice rises and falls, some steady, some trembling, some catching halfway through a name or a date or a line of poetry that never quite settled right in their throat. Some get a nod. Some get nothing. A few flinch when the teacher shifts his weight, thinking the stick might swing again, but today, it stays mostly still. The real test is softer than bruises. It's whether you flinch at all. When it's your turn, your knees protest as you stand. The wax board dangles from your wrist by its frayed cord, swinging like a slow pendulum, counting every heartbeat you wish would stop hammering in your ears. Your mouth opens. The line crawls out. Not perfect. Your tongue fumbles a vowel. Your breath stutters on a hard consonant, but you catch it before it tumbles all the way into silence. You catch it. Pull it back. Spit it out again clean. The older boys watch without blinking. Somewhere behind them, the olive tree creaks in the wind. The teacher's eyes rest on you for a breath longer than you want. He shifts his weight. The stick doesn't move. His mouth does. Good enough. Not good. Not yet. But close enough that your knees don't buckle when you kneel again. Wax board balanced on your thighs like a quiet promise that someday the last line you scratch will be the one that frees you. Some historians swear these final tests were gentle, just a nod from a teacher, a pat on the shoulder, a father's proud hand ruffling your hair when you came home with a tongue that never stumbled. But you know it's more complicated than that, because even when the stick retires, the chant never does. The city wants your voice just as sharp. The council wants your tongue just as steady. The streets want your eyes just as open for the secrets still treated like figs under the cracked old tree. When dusk creeps into the courtyard for the last time that day, the teacher lifts his stick one final time, not to swing, not to threaten, but to point at the gate. Some boys step through with their heads high, tunics brushing dust off their knees like the dirt never claimed them in the first place. Some glance back, half afraid they'll be called to kneel again. None of them drop their wax boards. Not yet. Not until they're sure they won't need them anymore. You stand a little slower. Your stylus taps your hip with each careful step toward the gate. Behind you, the olive tree rustles in the wind. One last soft applause for the boys who once chanted under its thin branches. At home, your mother doesn't say anything when she sees you at the door. She notices your wax board, the stylus cord still looped tight around your wrist. She touches the groove pressed deep into your palm. She doesn't scrub it clean. She lets it stay. When you lie down on your straw mat that night, you tuck the wax board under your arm like a pillow that's never betrayed you. You close your eyes and whisper a line not for tomorrow's chant, but for yourself alone. You made it through, almost ready to trade this cracked yard for the agorous marble steps or a general's muddy camp, or a quiet corner where you might one day teach some other wide-minded side boy how to kneel, how to scrape, how to stand. And if your hand still grips the stylus while you drift off to sleep, that's fine too. You know the chant. You know the stick. And tomorrow, you know your tongue won't fail you when it matters most. And now, friend, your breath grows slower than your steps ever did. The courtyard is empty. The olive tree's leaves hush their secrets to the dusk. Your wax board rests, where it always belonged, warm under your palm, softer than the lessons it held. You did well. You stood up when the dirt wanted you to kneel forever. You carried lines in your head when your shoulders threatened to bend. You felt the stick, but you didn't let it break you. Now the last chant is yours alone, soft enough to drift you past the courtyard walls, gentle enough to hush the echoes of every line you scraped away. The shadows lean close. The fig trees sigh outside your window. The city's hum fades to a murmur behind your eyelids. Sleep well, brave tongue. Rest easy, patient knees. Let the wax board grow warm under your dreams, its edges smooth at last.